Welcome back to Celebrity Radio. It's Alex Belfield talking to some of the world's biggest stars and the most interesting people as well. And Anita Shreve has had an amazing life. 18 books. Her new one is called Stellar Bane. She's worked in Nairobi. She's been on Oprah's Book Club, and she talks to us today. Anita, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
What a life you've had. Let's start at the beginning. The first thing I noticed about you, which we have in common, is that you worked in Nairobi as a journalist, as did I. I did the breakfast show at Capital FM for a while, and it was the most amazing, brilliant, and also awful time of my life, because that's what Kenya is, really. It's a duplex, isn't it?
When I lived there, it was a much easier place to live in, although the poverty, there wasn't a day that you weren't intimately aware of the poverty. It's actually tragic when you go to the places where they have the tent cities, cardboard cities.
And I guess all of this stuff helps you as a writer because it makes you understand life. And I guess the greatest skill of any writer is that you get humanity, you get people, and you get the ups and downs.
You do. I was a journalist there and wrote feature stories, and I wrote a story about one of the women who lived there and who worked as a domestic in, a wealthy person's house. And it was very interesting. You've
now moved over to America. I suppose you couldn't get further apart, could you? The poverty of Africa and then the overindulgence of the USA.
Yes, and when I came back, things that I had thought of as home and that I was very used to began to seem incredibly indulgent.
I just was in Florida in January after my Christmas tour, and I couldn't believe how much waste there was and the size of portions. It's almost obscene, America, in one way, isn't it?
That part of it is. There's a certain kind of restaurant that's now serving smaller portions, but it is. It's enough for four. It's what I used to have in a family of five on one plate.
Let's talk about you and writing, because you've had 18 books out which have been international bestsellers. Basically, everybody seems to love what you write. How do you do that then? What is the key to being a great author? So many people get it wrong, don't they?
Well, I think if you had 10 authors here, you get 10 different questions. For me, it's almost a compulsion. I don't think I cannot write. I mean, it's something I feel that I have to do. And as long as I'm going to do it, I try to do the best job I can.
And are you solitary with it? I mean, how do you go about it? Because you can't be distracted. Do you have music on, or is it pure silence?
No music and no dogs barking. I'm very solitary. I do it in the morning, and I don't speak to anyone while I do it, and I'm really not that easy to live with for about 2 hours after I'm finished.
And how do you do it? Do you go to a different place in your brain? Is there a certain escapism that allows you to write such incredible stories?
Well, I think it's a state very akin to daydreaming. And we all do it, when you're driving down the highway and all of a sudden you start thinking about how you'd like to rewrite the dialogue of an argument you had the night before, or what you plan to say at dinner that night. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm just bringing some craft to bear on the process.
And I guess trusting your mind, allowing you to go to places that probably somebody like me wouldn't go to, is how you create the imagination, is it?
I think so. I think the further you can distance yourself is a good idea to trigger the imagination. The odd thing is, though, if you have someone perceptive reading your books, often your subconscious has seeped through and they see it when you don't.
This new book is called The Lives of Stellar Bane. For those who are thinking of buying this, tell us what it's about and why we should go and buy it.
It's about a woman during World War I, an American VAD, a nurse who becomes a VAD, who is working in the hospital tents on the coast of France. And she has fled America. She's fled something terrible that's happened in her life. And she is seeking a man who is fighting for the British in order to make an apology to him. But along the way, the story is quite complex. And then she meets, she gets to England and she meets a cranial surgeon who, with his wife, tries to help her in what is kind of the early days of Freudian thinking.
And I guess this year, with the anniversary, it couldn't be more poignant to write this story.
Yes, I learned a lot about World War I, and although it was very grim, and I tried to convey the sort of ghastly aspects of it. It was, in one sense, the most romantic war ever fought, I believe, because it's the pure story of innocence into experience.
And of course, it was the first great bomb between America and England, and that's what you touch on in this book, isn't it? That it obviously destroyed many lives, but it also created many lives.
Yes, it did. We didn't enter till late in the war by your standards, but there is, a great outpouring on Veterans Day. I believe the last of the veterans of World War I has died, and there's more emphasis on World War II. But this year, there are stories, history that people didn't know about is coming to light.
What I have felt from reading your books in the past is that there's a sense of hope with much of your writing. Is that important to you, that you leave me, the reader, with a sense of spirit and hope?
Well, I didn't always do that, and sometimes my friends were afraid to read them. I've become, after long struggles and many sacrifices, I like to leave just a note of hope at the end. Yes, I do.
You mentioned there the struggles in life. I mean, I've read your autobiography, and you've certainly had a fascinating life. I wonder, a little like comedians, whether you have to struggle as a human being to be as creative as you are and to understand the human mind as well as you do. Do you think that's important, that to be a writer of your standard, you have to have had massive ups and massive downs and come back from them?
Well, I think, yes, although I think it's also possible simply to have been a mother. And I think that when you're a parent, you really begin to you understand other human beings, and you begin to have a kind of compassion that you didn't have before. I mean, the various things, my experience in Nairobi, my experience as a journalist, being a mother, all of these, even though I never write about myself consciously, all of these things make their way into the work.
And we're just approaching Mother's Day here in England. That feeling of love, is there any way of describing it or doing it justice?
Well, it's the most wonderful and satisfying and exalting, and also the most terrifying feeling that you can have. I think I wrote out my fears in Testimony, one of my novels, which is about a group of teenage boys who drink too much, and that one night of their lives ruins the rest of their lives. And I don't want that phone call in the night. And I didn't get it yet. Hopefully I'll never get it.
I'm always amazed by that, and I think we probably do a similar job in a sense that we get to talk to a lot of fascinating people who've lived much different lives to ourselves. That's what a journalist is, really. And it is amazing, isn't it, that one moment, one decision can literally affect, change, ruin, or make your life. I mean, it's very important, the decisions we make.
Oh, I think so. And we really, in a novel, there's maybe one moment that changes the life, but really, in real life, there are many of them.
And I have to say, probably the moment that changed your life was the moment that the phone rang and Oprah Winfrey's people said, "Would you be in our book club?" Because that then shot you to international megastardom. Having that kind of endorsement from somebody like Oprah can't hurt, can it?
No, it did not hurt. It was a stunning and bewildering episode in my life, but it was mostly fun. I have to say that. And the thing that it did do was I did have a backlist of several titles, and it made people want to go read the backlist, which was good because not that many people had read them before.
Do we all need that level of affirmation in our careers? I mean, without the help of others, it's hard, isn't it, to break through. If people don't know you're there, they're not going to read the book.
It's brutal, but I think really what she does is word of mouth writ large, but I think that books sell because of word of mouth between readers.
Who mostly read your books? I mean, they have a female touch, but I mean, I'm a guy. Well, I was when I woke up this morning, and I enjoy them as well. It's hard to fit that balance, isn't it, where you can sort of get everybody interested?
Yes, I'd like to think I write universal novels that have universal themes, almost genderless. You can write, I had novels in which the man has been the protagonist, and a lot of novels in which the female has been, but they touch on universal subjects, and It's not the case, but I would, ideally I'd like to have equal numbers reading them.
Children as well get to read these books now. They're all over schools and everywhere. Are there certain subjects that you won't touch, that you won't include? Where are your own boundaries with your novels?
I don't think I have any. I don't write with an agenda. If agenda it pops up or shows through, then so be it. But I don't start with that. I'm really trying to tell a story, and that's all it is, And if it was a terrible subject, I might go for it.
Are there moments when you sit there and you can't think, nothing comes through, and if that happens, do you just go and get a coffee and give up?
Oh, I have lots of issues with writing, but that's not one of them. I think because I was a journalist for so many years, I learned a very important lesson, which is that writing is not precious. You don't sit around waiting for the muse to come. You sit at the desk and you start working. And that has been very helpful to me as a life lesson, being a novelist.
And again, when the idea comes, it's then decluttering, isn't it? So that you can actually get the story through. What we don't want is to be distracted. That, I think, is always the hardest thing with any form of writing. That's why I can't do it. How do you remember what you wrote on page 4 when you're on page 237?
Well, by the time you reach 237, at least by the time I reach it, I have read and reread and rewritten again and revised and rewritten all of the pages up to 297. So I know the book inside and out.
Anita, it's been lovely talking to you today. Anita Shreve's new book is in the stores now. It's available at Amazon as well. The Lives of Stella Bain is her new and latest novel that I'm sure is going to do gangbusters. I really appreciate your time today. If people are wondering why the line's a little crackly, we're calling you in Maine today. You're in a hotel. Will you be coming over here to plug the book and for us to see you?
Yes, definitely. March 20th.
Great. Well, we look forward to seeing you then. And thank you so much for coming on the show, Anita, and good luck with your new book, Stella Bain. It's available now. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.